happy you guys could join us tonight on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to the dads out there. I sure miss my dad. And on behalf of Jack Blackburn, I thought I'd share a few of his jokes with you guys, and I know you'll appreciate it. For instance, a duck walks into a pharmacy, says to the clerk, "I need some chapstick." The clerk says, "Should I put it on your bill?" Hey, here's another one. Where does the 38D bus stop? About here. You see, that's a visual. It's a lot of fun, Jack Blackburn. He was such a laugh and such a card, and he was an amazing father. He had 6 kids by the time he was 33. God bless him. Anyway, I miss my dad, and truly, big happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. And I sure am grateful to my daughter's dad. So I know he's not watching, but let's just say he was. Happy Father's Day. Yay. All right, you guys, tonight I've got 4 amazing storytellers that are going to be sharing stories with you tonight. Every week, this is our 6th week, actually, we've been doing this. So it's a lot of fun, and I know you're going to enjoy each and every one of them. The first storyteller who's coming up to talk with us tonight, she is just a delight. Of course, she's been on the Storyworthy podcast, so you might have seen her there. She's an actor and a writer and an award-winning voiceover artist. That's right. She's a voiceover artist. She currently voices Frida Casagrande on Nickelodeon's animated show, The Casagrandes. And she also has a lot of TV credits with her whole self as an actress, including guest starring roles on American Vandal, For the People, Santa Clarita Diet, The League, NCIS LA, and New Girl. She's also a former member of the Groundlings, which always impresses me to no end. You guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the amazing Roxana Ortega.
Oh, thank goodness. That would have been quite a story. But here I am. So I'm going to tell you a story of Africa, basically. Ever since I was a little girl, I had the dream of going on a safari. I used to walk out of my house, skip out, and look up at the sky and say, "Oh, it's like Africa today," which it wasn't Africa. It was Fullerton, California. But something about the blue sky, albeit smoggy, made me imagine giraffes sauntering against a horizon. Okay, my little kid imagination. So in 2013, my friend Jenny was like, "I don't have anyone to hike Mount Kilimanjaro with." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'll go. We'll do your dream of hiking Mount Kilimanjaro, and then we'll do my dream of going on safari." The minute I said yes, I started to get cold feet. I'm a cold feet type of person, pretty much in everything. And this especially, because one, I'm American, and this was going to be a 14-day trip. So I don't do 14-day trips. I do weekenders, otherwise it feels way too indulgent. Like I start having anxiety about how I'm going to be productive, And 2, my dad had just died the year before, and I was helping to care for my mother with Alzheimer's. I was number 1 on the call sheet, and I would visit her almost every day. So I was getting a lot of guilt about it. Like, I can't leave town and go to Africa while my mother is sick in Encino. So I was talking to one of my aunts about the conundrum. This is my champagne aunt. She's just an aunt who drinks a lot of champagne. Her license plate on her car is Corbellin Up, which she regrets because she says, "Everyone gives me Corbel and I really wanted Up." So that's her. But she was saying, that this trip, it sounds fantastic. You have to go. You have to go. Do what you can do with your mom, but enjoy your life. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm doing it. I said yes. Now, I knew nothing about Mount Kilimanjaro. My friend Jenny actually had to tell me it was in Africa. And I'm not a hiker per se, but I love a good view and I'm willing to walk for it. So I thought, sure, it's going to be a lot of walking, but the views are going to be amazing. But she gave me a lot of books. Jenny gave me brochures and things to read, but I didn't want to read too much because I really wanted to be surprised. So I just perused. And one day I was perusing a book And I discovered something very interesting about Mount Kilimanjaro. It could kill you. People died every year. We were going to be walking in extreme altitude, up to 19,300 and something feet, which could cause something called cerebral edema, whose symptoms included 2 words: brain leak. Brain leak. Now, I'm adventurous, but I'm also extremely fearful. As I mentioned, a therapist once told me I run anxious. When I'm walking downstairs, I picture my dead body at the bottom of the stairs. That's what my brain does. So the last thing it needed was to think of itself leaking on top of a mountain. She gave me the gear list. It was 7 pages of essential gear with words like gaiters, balaclava, neoprene sleeve. Like, I didn't know how to pronounce them. I didn't know what they were for, but I knew if I didn't get them, I would die. And I hadn't planned on doing any training because I read in one of the books, you can't train for altitude, and I really clung to that. But the week before, I was so freaked out, I started hiking Runyon Canyon, which is like this shit-laden canyon here in LA where people go to look pretty. I started hiking that canyon and doing panic squats at 24-Hour Fitness, which just declared bankruptcy. And I get on the plane and I'm convinced I'm getting thrombosis. So I'm like hiking up and down the aisles and like stretching my quads by the restroom. Like, I'm just already freaked out. So we get to the base of Mount Kilimanjaro and we meet our 7 other people we were going to hike with, 30 porters that would help us carry our things up the mountain, and 3 guides. They immediately checked our heart rate and oxygen. It felt very serious. So the first night on the mountain, we're in the tent and the wind is just like flapping it all around. And Jenny slithers into her sleeping bag and is like, good night. And I have all my clothes on and I'm just lying there petrified. I am afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of the wind. And I am afraid of that brain leak. So the next day I tell the guides, I'm so scared. I'm telling them all my worries. And one of the guides was like, don't worry, it's not a problem. And I was like, no, it is a problem. I'm telling you, it's actually a problem. Like, how will I know if my brain is leaking? He said, you won't know. We will know. Oh my God, that didn't help things. So one day when we were hiking, he says, who here is afraid of heights? I was like, I am afraid of heights. I am afraid of heights. I am afraid of falling from heights. I am afraid of leaking from the heights. And he said, tomorrow you will hike behind me. And it wasn't so much as hiking as scaling like a wall of rocks with all of my limbs, which I did. But we were walking like 7 to 10 hours a day, and you would fall if you didn't have your pole technique down. I did not have my pole technique down. And I kept glaring over at Jenny like, damn, your dream is dangerous. So the night of the summit attempt, real encouraging. They wake us up at 12:30 in the morning in the pitch black to start a 6-hour ascent up this icy mountain. You go from 15,000 feet to 19,300 feet in 6 hours. They want you to see the sunrise when you get there. You see, it's the photo op. So we start the hike, zigzagging, got all my clothes on, and I am just focused. And about an hour of the way in, somebody in our group yells, hold on, and they vomit in the wind, and then we kept going. Another hour passes. Jenny's like, hold on, I have to have diarrhea. And she goes and has like altitude diarrhea behind a rock, and then we kept going. And then another hour in, 2 from our group were like, it's not worth it. And they just turn around and they start like hiking down the mountain. They paid a lot of money for that trip. It wasn't worth it. In fact, a lot of people were turning around from other groups. You'd see them just going back down the mountain. We passed this one woman who was seated in the like dirt, it was like dirt ice is what it was. She was seated there, and we were told it was too cold and too high to stop. Like helicopters couldn't even go there. Okay, machines die there. But she was just seated there, and her eyes were all popped out, and like you could feel her heart beating out of her chest. It was like the end of Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom, where the guy gets his heart ripped out, you know, Katamai, Katamai. Watch the film and you'll get that. So I was doing surprisingly well. I mean, I kept repeating my name and address over and over again in my head to make sure my brain hadn't sprung a leak. But I was focused and determined and first in line, you know, just going, trying to get to that mountain, trying to get to the peak. And I kept thinking, like, what are you doing? This isn't even your dream. Like, all you wanted to do was go on safari where you're not even allowed to walk. You sit in a Jeep and look at giraffes. But there I was, just trying to make it to that peak. But it wasn't about that for me. I felt like I was facing every fear that I had ever had. I felt like I was facing my own nature and that thing that I try so hard to comprehend, my own mortality. And I started thinking about my dad, who had died the year before, thinking about my mom, who was suffering with Alzheimer's after years, a whole life of sacrificing so much. And I knew they wouldn't want me to stop walking. And I kept thinking about my life and what I wanted it to be about. And I knew I didn't want to be that girl who turned around on the mountain. So at 6:30 in the morning, we made it to the top, and we laughed, we hugged, we cried, and I peed behind a tiny rock in front of many international strangers. Fun. It was very cold, but I made it. I felt like we had made it so high, but I also felt like I had made it into a higher place inside myself. Like I could have died, but I didn't. And that made my safari even sweeter. I got into that Jeep when we finally got on safari, and I sat there and I watched those giraffes saunter across the horizon, and it was just like Orange County. No, actually it wasn't. It was 1,000,000 times better and way more than I could ever have imagined. And that's my story.
That is so beautiful. Wow. Roxana Ortega, you guys. Follow her, check out her website, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. It should be in the chat box there. That is a crazy story. I never in my life heard of brain leak. But yeah, that would be that would definitely be the flag for me that I need to hold on, you know. Wow. I've never been to Africa. I've always wanted to go. I'm so happy for you. That's neat. Anyway, I'm on. Yes, I'm on. Anyway, it's so fun to be here, you guys. And again, I really appreciate everybody coming on and checking out the show. All of these talented people that I know. I'm feeling so lucky to know these people and that they'll come and give me their time like this. So thank you all again. We've got a couple more great stories coming up. But right now I was thinking about talking about a little bit about what happened to me or what was going on with me in college. You know, like when I was a sophomore in college, my girlfriends and I, we would go and see this musician who played in our campus bar every Tuesday night. His name was John Wilson. And he was one of those guitar players that like plays Brown Eyed Girl in the corner of the bar. But he was really good. He had like a harmonica strapped around his neck, and his foot tapped continuously on a tambourine that was built into the stage. Plus, he knew like every song. I mean, every Beatles song you can imagine. And especially, he played a lot of Dan Fogelberg songs. And I loved Dan Fogelberg. Now, I don't know if you guys remember him, but in the 70s, there was this whole singer-songwriter thing. There was like James Taylor and Cat Stevens, Neil Young, and Dan Fogelberg. He's the one who sang that song about running into his lover in the grocery store on New Year's Eve. And then they bumped into each other and she spilled her purse and they laughed until they cried. Yeah, they play it on New Year's Eve all the time. So here was John Wilson, a bearded guitar player, and he was playing that song as well as all these other amazing Dan Fogelberg songs. And I was just so impressed. Plus, he would send pictures of beer over to my table with me and my underage girlfriend. So that probably helped too. He'd always come over on his break and talk with us, and he gave me the most attention. And I like attention. So one Tuesday night, I was there at the bar with my friends, and on the break, John came over to talk, and I started lamenting to him about how my growl frog had died. Now, a growl frog is a baby tadpole that you order by mail, and I ordered one from my dorm room, and I named him Howard. And in fact, he did turn into a frog. And one day, my girlfriend Lynn from down the hall was in my dorm room, and for some reason, she took the frog out of the tank. And the slimy frog fell to the floor, and then it hopped into the hallway, and then Lynn picked up Howard and just freaked out, and she threw him down the garbage chute. It was devastating. Like, my frog was gone. I couldn't believe it. And as I told John this story, again, I started crying. And he looked at me so concerned, and I liked the way he reacted to me crying. And the very next week, he came back to the bar on that Tuesday night, not only with his guitars, but he was also carrying a 20-gallon aquarium, half of it with dirt and half of it with water. And in the middle sat a shiny frog. And then he played Dan Fogelberg's song, Looking for a Lady, and he asked me out. Well, I have to say, it was very exciting. Our very first date, he took me to Red Lobster, and he taught me to eat a lobster. Yeah, it was so exciting. He even let me sip sips of his strawberry daiquiri that came in a keepsake glass that he let me keep. It was so great. And then after dinner, he took me to Mario's Pub. And I was only 19 years old, but it was easy to sneak me in because that was John's regular Friday night gig. It was always packed with drunken businessmen with their neckties undone, and they'd be shouting out the lyrics to Gloria. I mean, he was so popular. That Friday night gig started to be one of my regular hangouts as well. At one point, John actually bought us some more keepsake mugs from behind the bar. Mine said, I'm with the band, and his said, I'm with the blonde. It was just really, really exciting. And the very next day, after that first date, it was Valentine's Day. And the phone rang in my dorm room. I picked it up, and it was the front desk. They were telling me that there was a package downstairs for me. So I ran to the elevator. I took the 9 floors down, and when the doors opened, I saw like the biggest Valentine you could ever imagine. And of course, it was from John. There were 5 presents and 5 notes. It said, smell the flowers, and there were daisies. Taste the apple, and there was a big shiny apple. Hear my song, and there was a cassette with the title Christine on it that he had apparently written in the last 8 hours. And then he wrote a note, and it said, feel my love for you. And with all 5 senses, I fell in love. And I gotta tell you, dating John was not like the other guys I dated, okay? He was older, he had his own apartment, and he not only took me to Red Lobster, but he took me to Bob Evans. And when I was 22 years old, let me tell you this first. One night after a gig, we had just started dating, we were back at his apartment. And I went to the bathroom, and I noticed some white tape tabs on the floor, but I didn't really think anything of it. And then we're in the living room, and we're talking. And then out of the blue, he says to me, hey, do you know those guys, Jimmy and Steve from the DVE morning show? Yeah, I know Jimmy and Steve from DVE. Everybody knows Jimmy and Steve. And he said, oh, okay, well, I look just like Steve Hansen. What? What are you talking about? He's bald. And then John scratched his head and he said, this is really just a hairpiece. And I saw the hair move on his head. I was stunned. And then he said, it really itches. I'm going to go take it off. So he goes into the bathroom and I just sat there. I didn't even know you could go bald at 31 years old. I mean, everybody's insecure about something, so I didn't want to make them feel bad. So I just didn't say anything. And I sat there thinking about Jimmy and Steve in the DVE morning show. But folks, when he came out of that bathroom, let me tell you something. He not only looked like Steve Hansen, he looked like Gandhi. But I pretended that it didn't matter, you know? I mean, first of all, I know a lot of men that are super handsome that don't have hair. But I was only 19 years old, you know, and I wanted that Dan Fogelberg hair. Let me tell you something. This was not Dan Fogelberg hair. But I let it go because I was his muse. It did bother me. I mean, there were tape tabs. That's what that was in the bathroom. Little white tape tabs from the double-sided sticky tape he used to hold the wig on his head. There was a styrofoam wig form that sat at the top of the closet to hold his wig when he wasn't wearing it. It was creepy. Plus, he was always so concerned about it. Like he couldn't be out playing music unless he had that wig on. It was like a big secret. Anyway, I let it go. And I was his muse. I overlooked it. And when I was 22 years old, a few years later, he asked me to move in with him. And we got a one-bedroom apartment in a fancy part of Pittsburgh called Shadyside. And we got a one-bedroom and we each brought 2 cats. So there were 4 cats in our one-bedroom apartment. Shortly after moving in together, I became a flight attendant. You may have heard some of my flight attendant stories, you guys. And when I was gone, I mean, I was gone a lot, right? Because I was a flight attendant and I missed John so much, you know? I missed all of his attention and I missed going to his gigs. And then it occurred to me, wait a minute. If I marry him, he could fly with me. So we did. We got married. John played me a beautiful song in our wedding ceremony, and then we flew for free to Europe for our honeymoon. John really liked my flight benefits, more than me even, and he started flying to Nashville all the time. And then eventually, he just got an apartment in Nashville, and I stayed at our place in Pittsburgh. I would go back and forth as often as I could, flying standby, hanging out in yet more airports. But I mean, let me tell you, he was so talented, and I just knew he was going to take off. I knew he was. Plus, he was playing at the Opryland theme park, which is a big amusement park, and he was a roving musician. So you know he was going to get discovered. Meantime, back in Pittsburgh, I became a real estate agent so that I could buy us a house without paying for the closing costs and stuff. We put an offer in on this townhouse, and with my savvy skills, I got us the deal, and our offer was accepted. I was so thrilled. So now it's right after Thanksgiving, actually. Because Thanksgiving is a Thursday, so it was Saturday. And my husband was playing at the Fireside Inn, which was this really great gig. And a bunch of my friends were coming to see him. And I was so excited to always have my friends there with me because he was so good. And I would look at them and I would say, that's my husband. Ask him to play any song in the world. He'll know it. I was so proud of him. So I had been on a trip and I drove home from the airport, got my uniform off and put on my party clothes, and I drove out to the Fireside Inn. And when I got there, I walked in, and he was playing Margaritaville, which I knew slid seamlessly into Cheeseburger in Paradise. And we started drinking beers, and we were partying, and we were dancing. It was so much fun. All my friends were so impressed, as always. And then finally, it was time for John to take a break. So he came over to our table, and then I asked him for his car keys so I could show my friends the pictures of our new townhouse. They were in the van. He was a musician. Of course, he had a van. So my friends and I go outside and we get into his van. We kind of hustle in because it's very, very cold outside. And I turn on the ignition to get some air going. And I'm looking on the ground for, for our pictures. We had taken these photographs and it was going to be used as a Christmas card and a change of address card. So we're standing in front of this townhouse with a big banner that said, "Look what Santa brought us." It was so exciting. And so I'm looking in the van, it's trash. I see like a Rolling Stone magazine and a Columbia House record club deal. And then I see this Christmas card. And it has a dove on the front and it says, "Peace on Earth." And I open the card and inside it says, "Dear John, I'm so sorry you're going through this right now, but it'll soon be over and we'll be together." And I looked up and he was standing right outside my window of the van. And I could see this light behind him and there was the snow coming down. And he stood there with the pictures of our house in his hand. And I wound the window down and I said, "What the fuck?" And he said, "No, no, 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 it's nothing. She's just a fan. She's just a groupie. It's nothing." A fan? Like me. And then he turned around and he walked back into the bar. My friends and I sat there in the van. It was very, very quiet. Nobody said anything. You could practically hear the snow falling outside. And after a few minutes, we just went back in the bar. And I pretended that I didn't read what I read. And I drank and I danced. And then at the very end of the night, I was super drunk and I couldn't drive. So my friend Karen offered to drive me home. And it was so weird because it was like, he didn't say, "Come home with me." "No, come with me. We need to talk." He just let me go with Karen. And so I went with her to her house. And that night I was lying on her couch and I kept thinking about that card and how it was signed. It was signed like Lauren or Laura or Lori or Lara. Lara. Lara Vanderbush. I know this girl. She has bleached blonde hair. She's always like really, really tan and she wears these tiny tank tops. She always comes to his gigs. She always requests that stupid song Brandy over and over again. She was younger than me. In the morning, my friend Karen took me to get my car and I drove quickly home to our apartment so that I could confront him with this newfound information. And I flung open the apartment door and it was empty. We had been robbed. I picked up the phone and I dialed 911. Yes, we've been robbed. The stereo is gone and the TV is gone and there are 4 guitars missing. Mine's here, but there's 2 of the cats aren't here. And right then, as I was counting cats, it occurred to me, he moved out. And I walked down the hallway to our bedroom. And in the bedroom, next to our king-size waterbed, was this big antique dresser that his grandmother had given us. And the dresser was there, but he had taken the drawers. So it just stood there gaping with these 3 big holes, like eyes and a mouth, as if to say, "You didn't see this coming." I told 911, "I'm sorry, I haven't been robbed." But I was robbed, I was robbed of my marriage and I was robbed of my townhouse. And I really liked his cats. A couple of weeks later, I get a letter from his grandmother. And she asks me to go easy on John through the divorce because he and Lara are expecting a child. So he got another girl pregnant while we were married, and then he had his grandmother tell me about it. He didn't have any class. He wasn't Dan Fogelberg. He was just some guy that wears a hairpiece and plays brown-eyed girl in the corner of a bar. I was now 26 years old. I was a flight attendant, and I was a real estate agent. And I learned that I don't need to be anyone's muse, let alone some guy who is playing brandy for his pregnant girlfriend. I learned that I can take care of myself. I can be the star of my own life, and I can go to Los Angeles and I can create things. And that's what I did. Thank you. Anyway, you guys, thanks so much for listening. I know that's a kind of an intense story. The story of my first husband. I'm writing a book, by the way. It's called Dear Alabama. And it's basically going to go through all these relationships I have had and explain to her at the end of each chapter why she shouldn't go out with that guy. Each relationship gets a chapter. It's a big book. Ladies and gentlemen, the next performer coming up right now to tell a true story, she is an amazing person. I've gotten to know her quite well, and she is not only a writer, and not only was she the executive producer on The Late Show with David Letterman, but she's also the co-creator of The Daily Show. And get this, after all those years on television, all those years with David Letterman and on The Daily Show, she has now given it all up to become a chef. That's right, she's a chef. And she has this really great cooking show that is fun and funny. You can find it on YouTube. It's called Mad in the Kitchen. Wherever you are right now, you guys, put your hands together for the fantastic Madeleine Smithberg.
Hold on, I gotta unmute myself. I was not the executive producer of the Letterman show. I was a segment producer, but thank you so much for the great introduction. And your story has made me feel so much better about some of the terrible decisions I have made in my life. Love you, Christine. We've been having a really good time. She's been helping me with my website, which is finally finished. And, but the story I want to tell tonight is actually, it's not about a success, it's about a failure. I should preface it by saying that, as Christine was alluding to, I've had a lot of success in my life, very public success. I was the co-creator of The Daily Show. I ran it for its first 7 years. Moment of Zen was based on my cat. My name is still on the show every single night, which makes me laugh. And yes, I've just gone through a tremendous transition, and I've left TV only to come back to it through the back door with my funny, hopefully, YouTube channel. But this story is one of failure. And it involves my beautiful son, Harrison, who is now 22 years old. But he's the joy of my life, but inadvertently and not his fault, his childhood created a lot of stress for me. First of all, I should explain, I know it's an unpopular thing to say, but I hate sports. I hate talking about sports. I hate when other people talk about sports. I hate watching sports, except basketball. I like basketball, and I've always liked it because I understand it. It's very simple, but I've spent just hours and hours and hours of my life trying to appreciate football without any success, and I just can't stand it. So, due to a very kind of, I think, cruel joke played on me by whoever plays those kind of macro cool jokes, I could not get pregnant. I went through 2 years of horribly invasive and ultimately soul-crushing and disappointing fertility treatments and interventions, and then woke up one day saying, I'm going to adopt, and then doing just that. 9 months later, I had my beautiful, beautiful son, Harrison. Harrison's birth father, Knowlton Guillery, who's actually Creole and has an amazing story, and who was Black, was all-state in 4 sports in the state of Arkansas. he went to LSU on a full ride for football. My son has been athletic since he was 2, when he taught himself how to do somersaults in the pool. He rode a bike at 4, and once he turned 5, my life as a sports mom began. It's the worst suited role for myself I've ever had. It started with T-ball. Now, T-ball was cute. I didn't mind T-ball because I could talk to all the other moms and gay dads on the bleachers, and it was relatively easy to understand. And then came soccer. Soccer hated me almost as much as I hated it. It was as if every other parent of every other player on his team had received some sort of very detailed communication, which I had not been sent. And part of this communication was that you needed to bring your own seating. Soccer would not provide it. Soccer had a lot of rules, but I have rules too. And one of my rules is, if I'm going somewhere and I'm bringing my own chair, there needs to be water. I do not carry a chair to sit on the sidelines wondering which team I'm supposed to be cheering for. That somebody else can do that. But then I finally, after my back started to give out from sitting on a towel while everyone else was sitting on chairs, I broke down. I bought this stupid chair, only to be informed that there were no chairs on artificial turf. I'm telling you, I hate soccer. I, as a TV producer, can bring a 2-hour live election night special with graphics and jokes created for all the 50 states in on time, hitting every single mark. But if you tell me that I'm snack mom, I will curl up in a fetal position and never stop sobbing. It was god awful. There's more. After soccer, we went to basketball. He broke his nose and got a really bad cut on his eyebrow. But other than that, basketball was actually the best of them, if you can imagine. Then came football. Football was really a sort of literal realization of my idea of hell on planet Earth. Not only do I hate the game and feel that it's unnecessarily violent, I find it impossible to understand. What are the downs? When do we switch directions? I can't see their faces. I don't know who to root for. It was a sea of kids, all looking identical, and mine was marked only by a number 82, but there were 81, 84, 83, and they were far away. So there would be like these horrible pileups, and someone would be left unconscious, and you would have to start looking at the numbers almost like a bingo card and check them off and realize if it was your son or not. And then one time it was my son. And my friend said, "Woo, whoever that was probably really hurt his back." And it was Harry. And later on, he left and he went to a friend's house. And I texted him and I said, "How's your back?" And he said, "My back is fine. It was my head." So then we had to watch for signs of a concussion for the next 48 hours. But nothing would prepare me for the diabolical hell that was track and field. My son was a sprinter. He was actually the number 200. His team was the number 200 relay team in all of Los Angeles County. And I'm guessing that's a lot of really fast kids. At the time that track began, at first I thought, how awesome. It's not like teams, it's just individual accomplishment. This is going to be great. My dad got really sick. He had Parkinson's and then he fell. And so I missed most of the season, which led to something very pleasant, which is guilt. And so I felt, not only did I feel horrible because my dad was suffering, I felt guilty because I was missing track. So it wasn't like the optimal period in my life. But one day, my dad had sort of come out of the woods and he had a meet in Palos Verdes. Now, I was living in the Valley. I was living in Studio City. And if you know the area or you have Google Maps, you could figure it out. That's a 90-minute drive. So right off the bat, I'm giving up 3 hours of my Saturday, which is fine because it's for my son, who I love and want only to please and support. But that's a lot of driving. But it doesn't matter. I was down. Track meets are about 5 hours long. Nobody told me, because I never got the information that they're distributing in the secret files to the other parents. The sprinting events happen at the end of that 5 hours. So I was sitting baking in the sun, because no one told me you're supposed to bring an umbrella. Everyone else got the memo. They all had umbrellas, but I was just baking in the sun for 5 hours, waiting for my moment to shine. I had just bought a new iPhone and I had a slow motion feature. And this was going to be great because not only was I going to capture his winning sprint, but I was going to do it in slow motion. So I made my way down to the side of the course and I found a position where I knew I would get him, and I put my camera on slow motion and they ran the relay and I didn't see any of it because I was concentrating too hard on capturing its magnificence in slow motion on my phone. So after the race is over, I play the footage back, and if you've watched slow motion footage of track, it's a lot. It sounds like whoa. It's very threatening, and it takes about a minute before anything you're even looking for starts to happen in the frame. But there's all this excitement. I'm gonna win sort of the parent Pulitzer Prize of photography, of taking this footage. And as what I think is my son starts to come into frame, I realize that's not my son. This kid is Asian. And I realize that I have captured the wrong child's performance. So I've given up 5 hours plus 3 hours of car time, which is 8 hours. And I have absolutely nothing to show for my time. I make my way back. I go see my dad. And the next weekend is another meet. My dad is now in a nursing home. He's in Studio City, which is very close to me. So I feel very confident that I can go and give myself the redemption, which I'm sure that I'm going to get and totally deserve, because that was just a fluke. So I also now know to go 4 hours into the damn thing, because I'm sorry, I'm there to see my kid run. I don't have time to see everybody else's kids running. And I know that's terrible. And this whole thing is a confession of mediocrity on my part. This was not what I was cut out to do. So my ex-husband is there, and at this point we're cordial, and he takes me to a place where I'll be able to watch Harry come over. This is an individual event. I'll be able to capture him coming across the finish line. And I'm either brave or a glutton for punishment, but I decide to try the slow motion thing again. And Jonathan helps me get into position. And Harry comes streaking across the finish line. He comes in second. That's pretty good in track. Anything. Second is good. And I'm really confident that I have captured it. So I hang out and I chit-chat a little bit more with Jonathan. I say goodbye to Harry, and now I'm heading to the nursing home to see my dad, but I have to pee. So I go to the bathroom, and then I get in my car, and I'm listening to All Things Considered, and I drive. It's about 27-minute drive, and I get to the nursing home. Now, my dad is completely incoherent, but I try to keep up a sort of facade of normalcy. So I say, hey, Daddy, I was just at Harry's track meet, and I want to show you your grandson, who he loved more than anything in the world, running. He came in second. And I cue up the video and it begins, and you see about maybe 10 seconds of Harry after he's already run across the finish line. And then we proceed to focus on Jonathan's feet, my ex-husband, and him talking to another track mom. And then you hear me pee very clearly, perfectly captured. And then you hear the toilet flush. You hear a walking. I get to my car. You hear that my alarm go beep, beep. I get into my car, and then you hear all of All Things Considered on KCRW. And that is my story. I was so happy when he graduated.
That is so damn funny. Oh my gosh. I can't imagine having so much like experience and control with what you're doing in terms of like, you know, being a writer or producer on these really great shows that you've done, and then not being able to control that minute. Ooh, that's funny. That's really funny. Okay, listen, you guys, we've got 2 more storytellers coming up, and then we're going to be doing our after show. So I advise you to stick around because we're going to play a little bit of Story Smash. And if you haven't seen it yet, you've got to join us. We have so much fun. All right, you guys, here comes the next talent. He is a comedian and a writer, and his first comedy album called A Little Off the Top of My Head is out right now, and you can find it on his brand spanking new website, jimcoughlin.com. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one of my very best friends over 22 years, the second person I ever met in Los Angeles. Put your hands together for Jim Coughlin.
All right, all right. Oh, let's see. It's doing something here. Oh, unmute myself. There we go. Now you can hear me. Okay, great. So first off, yeah, I want to talk about a trip I took in 1995. So it's February 1995, and I'm in a van with 4 other people, and we are headed to Atlanta, to the Atlanta Groundhog Day Juggling Festival. I know a lot of you are jealous right now. So it's in this van, we are members of Sausage. And Sausage is the name we gave to the St. Louis area juggling club. We decided to name it after one of the members, Al Stanger. And so we called it the Stanger Organization for the Study of Epistemology and Juggling, SOSEJ, Sausage. And when we named it after Al, he told us it was actually the second time that a club had been named after him. So it wasn't that big of a deal for him. So in the van is Al Stanger, a very good technical juggler, not much of a performer, a little shy, but a great juggler. And then there's Kate. Kate is somebody who juggles, but almost never actually juggles. But she had landed a side gig as a secret shopper for TWA. And so she just started flying around the world for free to juggling festivals. And we were all very jealous of that. And then there was the club president, Richard Kennison. And Richard was coaching a younger juggler named Casey Bamer. So Casey was with us. Casey was 15 years old. And Casey was from a family of 11 children. And all of the 11 children, plus the parents, were all jugglers. That's right, the Bamer family jugglers. And what had happened was the father had been working in a job where he was out in a field by himself in a small house or something, taught himself to juggle. The kids loved it. He taught them to juggle. And pretty soon they had this 13-person family act. And as each child was born, they started putting the kid into the act. So you'd have a one-year-old who would stand on their hands and they would balance them and throw them around and stuff. Now, Casey was the best juggler in the family, and what made that slightly more amazing was Casey only had one arm. Casey was a one-arm juggler. His left arm ended at the elbow from presumably a birth defect, but he was just a fantastic juggler. Now, this was in the St. Louis area. They lived in Illinois, but very close to St. Louis, and there was already a one-arm juggler in St. Louis. His name was Dale Jones. Dale Jones, very funny guy, very nice guy. And he advertised himself as the one-armed juggler. But when Casey arrived on the scene, then technically you had to point out that technically Dale had 2 arms, but one was withered. So anyway, so then he started advertising himself as the one-armed comedy juggler, which was fair enough. So anyway, so we are in this band, we're going to this festival, and we're going to compete in the juggling festival competition. And this is a legendary competition. It's not the International Jugglers Association, but it's, you know, it's a secondary level type thing. And they give out 3 awards every year that are kind of equal awards. They have different names, but it's like most incredible, most spectacular, most amazing, something like that. And just to give you an idea of how good this award is, Anthony Gatto, who Time Magazine said was the best juggler in the world, won this award. Now, he was only 8 when he won it, but that's not important. The important thing is it's a big deal. So we go down to this festival, and when you go to a juggling festival, it's exactly what you imagine. It's, if you've known one juggler, you've known us all, and we're in a large gymnasium because you need high ceilings, and we're juggling. That's it. That's a juggling festival. There's some, you know, chit-chats, there's some classes maybe, but mainly it's just a bunch of people in a gym throwing stuff around. And this is a pretty good festival. Just to give you an idea of the people that will ultimately end up competing, there's this guy named Bruce Seraphin. Bruce had the world record for most objects ever juggled. He had juggled 11 beanbags. He's going to compete. There's this guy, Jay Gilligan. He's a great world-class level juggler. And I signed myself up to compete against these people. And Al Stanger, he signs himself up, and Casey signs himself up. Casey being 15, he has no concern. He's no fears. He's too dumb. And I mean, being young, he's too dumb to have the fears that adults have of being humiliated in front of a large group of people, right? So he's fine. Al is like, I don't think I'm going to go with this. And when I went to turn in my music tape to be played when I performed, Jay Gilligan came up and he turned in his tape. And on his tape, he had written winner 92 and 94 because he had won. I don't know why he needed to put that on the tape, but he wrote that on there. And he also wrote down 95. He was planning on winning, and he was making it clear to everybody that he was going to win. And I appreciate, on some level, I do appreciate that level of cockiness, because one time at a juggling festival, we had a 5-ball competition. And in a 5-ball competition, you just juggle 5 balls. You start at the same time, and the last one still juggling 5 wins, right? And you would sign this T-shirt with your name on it, and then the winner gets the T-shirt. So in a way, you sort of win all those other autographs of the losers. And I wrote down Jim 5-ball Coughlin, which is pretty arrogant. And first off, you're not supposed to give yourself a nickname, and no one called me 5-ball. They just want to put that out there. But it did make me go, okay, now you've really, you know, put yourself out there. And I did win. So I'll just say I don't blame Jay for what he did. But there we were.
Did great.
And so I'm hearing voices coming back to me. But anyway, so now it's almost time for the competition in Atlanta. And a really, really good juggler, much better than me, looks at me, and he's not competing. And then he's like, are you competing? And it was like I was going to Bosnia. He didn't want to see what was about to happen. As it turned out, the world record holder, he decided to do some clown work. And not everybody's a good clown. I'm sorry, this sounds terrible. It was terrible. It was terrible. That helped my confidence a little bit. This probably makes me a terrible person, but it did help my confidence. Then Jay Gilligan goes up and he performs the type of act that would get you into Cirque du Soleil. I mean, it's really fantastic. But every time he did a trick, he nodded to the audience as if to say, aren't I fantastic? And I was like, I think these people hate him. And it really, again, improved my confidence. And Al didn't go up. Casey went up. Now, this is, again, he's 15 years old, and he juggled 4 clubs with just his one arm. And he did a 5-ring flash, which is throwing 5 rings up very fast and catching them all. Again, one-armed, just amazing. I did go up, and now I am not that great of a juggler, but I do have some showmanship. So I juggled cigar boxes. These are cigar boxes, and I'm really, really rusty and stuff. But I'll just show you the idea of cigar boxes. Now I'm doing prop comedy. But anyway, you know, it's this type of stuff. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, I have never been more afraid to perform in my life, and I sold that shit. And I ended by spinning a suitcase on my fingers. I think it went like this. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it was all over. Casey Bamer won the award for, I think it was most amazing. And a guy who might have lost to Al Stanger, he won an award. And ladies and gentlemen, my groundhog is broken, but I won most spectacular at the 17th annual Groundhog Day Juggling Festival. And I'm still very proud of this. One of my only wins in life. Thank you so much. That's my show. That's my story.
Amazing. Jim Coughlin, a juggler. Don't you love a juggling story? Ladies and gentlemen, boy, oh boy, this has been so much fun. We've got one more storyteller coming up right now, and then we're going to start the after show, so stick around. Okay, check it out. This guy is a comedy writer and an author and an artist, and he's best known for writing and producing on Seinfeld for 9 years. Now, some of the episodes that he wrote for or co-wrote include the Yada 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 episode, The Sponge, The Showerhead, The Smelly Car, The Hamptons, and so many more. He has contributed articles to the Washington Post and GQ Magazine and New York Times, GQ Esquire and New York Times Magazine. Plus, he has 3 successful books out there, you guys. Mandela Was Late, It Won't Always Be This Great, and Hashtag Me As Well, which I hold in my left hand. And you heard it here first. It's damn funny, and it's a really great book. You guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the fantastic Peter Mehlman.
I'm going to tell a story about my little trip to a health spa. It was 1994, and I was in my 3rd season of writing at Seinfeld. And it was my first job in show business, and it was the first job where I had to create anything and be fictional. So I was kind of, at the time, obsessed with trying to coax creativity out of myself. I was, at the tutelage of Larry David, who had incredible access to his tiniest thoughts. So I was trying to be very aware of my own thoughts all the time, and it became kind of an obsession. Anyhow, in January of that year, the big earthquake hit. The stage on which we produced Seinfeld was structurally damaged. So it ended up extending the season of Seinfeld by an entire month. So by the time I was through with that season, I was absolutely fried. I was exhausted. And I was talking on the phone with a friend who said that she just got back from this place, Canyon Ranch in Tucson, Arizona. And you should go there. It would make you feel great. You'd feel totally refreshed and healthy. And I was being so grossly overpaid then that I called up, made the reservations, paid, and went. I got on a plane. I met somebody on the plane who was also going to Canyon Ranch who informed me that it was $600 a night. I had no idea, and I couldn't believe it. I was ready to turn around right there, but I went. I arrived, and when I got to the spa, it was about 110 degrees, and the first thing I see is Courtney Love being propped up by 2 huge guys as she's trying to dry out. I was like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? I went to my room and I proceeded to spend the entire day watching NBA playoff games. $600 a day, I'm sitting in my room watching NBA playoff games. The next morning, I decide, well, I should try to take part in what's going on here. So I go on a hike. All the people on the hike, the whole way, they're talking about health and fitness and healthy eating and eating organic and having tons of water and eating tons of vegetables. And I was so incredibly bored. You know, like, this is the conversation? You know, come on. There's got to be something else in the world. I get back to the spa, and I'm walking around the grounds when I come upon a group of smokers. They're all sitting around smoking. So I sit down with them, and their conversation is fantastic. It's lively, it's fun, we're laughing and smoking. So in 2 days so far at Canyon Ranch, at $600 a night, I've watched NBA playoff games and taken up smoking. So that night, I go to dinner. They have these big tables that they kind of just set you up at with 8 people per table. And they put you with total strangers so you can get to know everybody there. And, you know, the talk around the table is kind of fun. And then it takes me literally 2 days to realize that this is Mother's Day weekend. It's I look around, it's basically me and 100 mothers and their daughters spending this weekend at the health spa. So I become kind of a curiosity since I'm just, you know, there by myself. And I'm sitting at this table, and there's this mother and daughter sitting next to me, and the mother is talking and telling some story, and the daughter, leans over to me and whispers, "I fucking hate my mother." I'm like, okay, well, good to know. And the mother continues with the story, then other people are talking, and then they come around with the choice of meals, and one of them is Lake Superior whitefish. And I had this joke lying around, so I just said, no, I'm boycotting Lake Superior. You know, I think it's a little arrogant that you have to call yourself Lake Superior. I mean, they're all great lakes. So everybody at the table just stares at me, except for the girl who hates her mother. She busts out laughing and she's like, "Oh my God," and slapping me on the shoulder. "That is so funny." I'm like, well, okay, great. The next day, I go on another hike. I can't believe it. Just thinking, well, maybe it'll be better this time. Again, the conversation is all about health and food and fitness. I go about halfway up and come back and go back to the spa where I hire a tennis coach, and I just hit tennis balls without much effort for about a half hour. And then I'm walking around, and I go over to the smokers, and I resume smoking and talking and having fun. And the girl who hates her mother happens to walk by and sees me with the smokers, and she comes over and she's diving right in. Anybody have a Marlboro Light, she's saying? I'm like, what are you coming into this group and like trying to pick your brand? So anyway, after the conversation, me and this girl, we take this long walk around the grounds. At one point, we turn the corner near the edge of the spa, and we come face to face with a bobcat. He just looks at us. We just look back at the bobcat, and finally, he just kind of ambles off, not the least bit scared of us. So we're walking, and she's telling me all about why she hates her mother. And, you know, it's kind of engrossing, and I'm listening, and I'm like thinking, God, I wish I could just reach into my pocket and pull out my notebook so I could write some of this stuff down. This is really good. This could be good material. But I'm trying to memorize it. That's how, like preoccupied I am with, learning to be creative. And so we continue walking around, and then we're standing on a little bridge over a dry waterbed. And she comes over and starts kissing me. And we're just basically making out. And I'm thinking, well, I figure she hates her mother. She probably would want to hang out and make out with the only guy who's, available here. But then I start thinking to myself, it's amazing how every girl's got her own little kissing system, lips here, hands there, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm so absorbed with capturing and retaining my own little thoughts that I'm in the middle of making out with somebody and I'm not in the moment. I'm actually just observing the moment. And so I would say at $600 a night, the only thing I really accomplished was realizing that I've got to strike a balance between doing my job and living some kind of existential life. I flew home the next day, and when I got home, I was more exhausted than when I left. That's it.
That is so great. Peter Mehlman, you guys. That was so fun. Thank you so much, Peter. What a great story. I mean, the fact that you were so absorbed in the Seinfeld world, that's why maybe it was part of the reason why it was so successful. What do I know? But the point is, thank you for your time. Listen, you guys, I want to give a big round of applause to everybody that told a story tonight, including Roxana Ortega. Yay! She also gets the award for the most beautiful on Zoom. Yay, Roxana! And I also want to thank Jim Coughlin, Madeleine Smithberg, and of course, Peter Mehlman. Thank you so much. You guys stick around for the after show. It's going to start in 1 minute. But in the meantime, thank you so much. My name is Christine Blackburn. Have a great night.
Grapefruit moon, one star shining